Could we see a blockbuster deal between Vancouver and Calgary involving Brock Boeser? Could there be a deal between Montreal and Edmonton involving Sean Monahan? We'll discuss those two scenarios. Plus, should the Ottawa Senators reconsider a deal involving Jacob Chychrun? We have all that, plus some other news from around the NHL. All that coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at today. First up, some news from the waiver wire. We had two players on waivers yesterday. Both have cleared. It's Evgeny Svechnikov of the Sharks and Dominic Toninato of the Winnipeg Jets. So both players are cleared, and there was nobody new placed on waivers here today. A few roster moves from the Vegas Golden Knights. Defenseman Alex Pietrangelo will be away from the team for what they're calling right now an indefinite period of time due to a family illness of some sort. It's all we know. Of course, due to family and privacy and all that, they're not really obligated to say anything more. We may or may not ever get additional details, which is not really overly important right now anyhow. So for Pietrangelo's sake, he's moved to a non-roster spot, and they will therefore give him a leave of absence, basically, is what they're looking at. So hopefully he can get back soon and everything turns out okay with whatever the family appears to be dealing with. The Golden Knights also placed forward Brett Howden on long-term injury reserve, so they could therefore create some space to be able to do some call-ups to be able to replace some of these players as well on the roster. The injury bug continues to bite the Maple Leafs blue line. Thankfully for their sake, they continue to do well and have, like I said, been winning lately and had a real solid past 4 or 5 weeks. But Victor Mete is the latest victim here, going down with injury for another Leaf defenseman out for a period of time. This one appears to be a lower body injury is all we know right now. They've had a lot of different guys coming up and filling in, some getting their first taste of NHL action. And like I said, they continue to play well and do well, so let's not impeding them right now. Of course, Mitch Marner's goal streak, or point streak, I should say, carried on in their last game as the Leafs shut out Dallas. And Jason Robertson's streak came to an end. At 18 games, Marner's moves on and goes forward to 20 games. As I mentioned, both those streaks I thought were good for the game. Two young top players, offensively gifted players at that, having phenomenal streaks. It's just good exposure, good for the league, good for the game overall. And Marner's continues on forward here. So I'm sure we haven't heard the last of Robertson. He's having a phenomenal year and certainly one of the top players in the league right now. Speaking of guys having phenomenal years, Tage Thompson. Of course, I'm recording this video a little bit late here today. Some of the early games are already over with, and the Sabres absolutely clobbered the Blue Jackets, and Tage Thompson ended up scoring a whopping 5 goals. I know he had 4 in the first period after 16 minutes and 40 seconds of action, which was phenomenal for him. The Jackets get booed off the ice to end the first period. So Thompson, and I'm going to show you a graphic here, which is courtesy of one of our other channels here that we've worked with in the past, friend of the channel, O Nyquist. I'll show you one of the graphics he did up, showing you how the first part of Thompson's career, he was really starting to look like he wasn't going to make it, and he was going to be a potential, bust, so to speak. Not that he was like super high pick, but still, he was the primary prospect, that came to Buffalo in the Ryan O'Reilly trade, and that trade was looking horrendous for a long time. Now, not so much. Now he's looking like a bona fide superstar in the past year plus. Looking at the first number of games of his career, he scored 35 points in the first 145 games that he played. Like I said, things were not looking well. Not only was he not looking like a star, it wasn't looking like he was even going to stick in the league. And in the last 104 games, he scored 59 goals and has 108 points, putting him at over a point per game pace. So it goes to show you that there can be late blooming superstars in this league, and it's quite a telling tale. He's absolutely exploded. I know when he signed that long-term deal with the Sabres in the offseason, I questioned it too. I wondered, can he keep up that pace that he showed last year? And so far, the answer is absolutely yes. And not only is that contract going to be all right, I think it's going to turn out to be a steal of a deal if he continues to play like this. Like, this is phenomenal response from Thompson this year to back it up yet again and show that contract was no joke, no fluke, and it won't be an issue for the Sabres on a longer-term basis. We saw Shane Wright score his first NHL goal last night as well, and really came at the right time, if you will, against the Montreal Canadiens, which was kind of the way the schedule and the timing of everything worked out. It just seemed to be, the right feel, so to speak. Obviously after Wright was a projected first overall pick for a long time, obviously right at the end of it there, he ends up going and slipping down to fourth overall at the draft. Montreal goes in a new direction with the first pick to Uri Slafkovsky. And, you could tell that Shane Wright was not pleased that he wasn't picked. When he finally was picked fourth when going up on stage, you could tell he was staring down the entire Montreal draft table. And even though he was asked about it and denied that that's what he was doing, I personally think he was. I think he was pissed and had it in his mind that he was absolutely going to do what he could to show them that they made a mistake and took the wrong player. And of course, he gets to come back to the NHL after being away on a conditioning stint and get some game action at the American Hockey League level, which is the only way they're able to really kind of work the loophole around to get him down there, since he should be in junior. And he gets his first game back, gets to play. He played around 12 minutes of action and scores his first goal against the Habs, which was, like I said, just seemed to be very fitting in that regard. And of course, he is going to be loaned, if he hasn't been already, to go to the World Junior Championships with Team Canada. Their camp gets underway here later this week in Moncton, New Brunswick. And of course, we also learned today that the LA Kings are loaning defenseman Brent Clark to be able to participate in that tournament. And we had previously heard as well that the Arizona Coyotes were also sending Dylan Gunter also to be part of Team Canada. So that's going to be a big boost, getting some guys there with some NHL experience onto that roster. Now, as I mentioned in the trade section of the video, could we see a blockbuster deal between the Canucks and the Flames? Of course, at one point we used to tease and call the Flames the Calgary Canucks because they have such a link to Vancouver with all the players that they've acquired, mostly through free agency in recent years, including Chris Tanev, Jacob Markstrom, both went there as free agents, just to name a few. And there's some other players between the two teams that certainly have a connection, of course, you could say, between Calgary and Vancouver. Tyler Toffoli, of course, now in Calgary. Of course, he's a former Canuck as well. Went through Montreal to get there, but still, lots of players have gone their ways from Vancouver to Calgary. So could Brock Boeser be the next one to do that? Well, a very well-informed, well-connected Canucks media member, Rick Dollywall, was speaking about this recently. He's talking about the fact that the Canucks and Flames have definitely had talks. The Flames have definitely shown interest in Boeser and have been kicking tires at the very least. And there's been lots of conversations and constant contact between the two parties, which really should not be overly shocking. If you think about it, as I talked about in the past couple of days, Brock Boeser is known that he and his agent have consent to find a deal to get him on a fresh start on a new team. And he's a young scoring forward. Yes, he's not having a good season, but at the same time, he's still young enough and talented enough. I think teams won't have an issue making a deal here to acquire him, especially if they don't have to pay, a huge price tag to get it done. The fact that the Calgary Flames are interested here doesn't surprise me in the least. The Flames have been rumored to be looking for another top 6 or top 9 forward, really since the offseason and the beginning of the year. The only issue is, of course, to take the contract on as is would be challenging from a salary cap perspective, so they would need Vancouver to take something back. Now, of course, you got to wonder, could the Canucks be interested in some of their blue liners? Certainly, the Flames have, they're rich in assets and defense, but not so much in the forward group, right? So I think they could offer up a D in order to bring in a guy like Boeser up front. Now, could they? I'm not sure who that's going to be. I know the Canucks may love to have Chris Tanev back, but I don't know that the Calgary would go there. But certainly, if you look around through their blue line, you've got Hannafin, you've got Anderson, you've got Tanev. I'm not sure that any of them are really going to be the ones to go. But certainly, I'm sure Vancouver would have interest in any of those guys. Of course, there's also Zadorov and Uyghur. Uyghur just recently signed a long-term extension, so unlikely to be him. They went with that, and what the return ended up being. There's also some prospects on the Calgary side of things that would be intriguing as well. So you have to wonder if maybe there is more to the story, and could we see another Calgary Flame, acquisition here from Vancouver. It seems like that they've done this many times in the past couple of years, and Brock Boeser just might be the latest guy to add to that list of players. But like I said before, I expect there to be a ton of interest from around the league. All kinds of teams are going to inquire and kick tires, and it's hard to say exactly when we see a deal go down. Now, could we also see a deal between the Montreal Canadiens and the Edmonton Oilers? That's also a possibility. I read some articles and reports today suggesting that the Edmonton Oilers could be looking at a player like Sean Monahan for their later season acquisitions. Of course, Monahan is having a good year in Montreal. Recently got hurt, so we'll have to monitor that situation. But certainly, Montreal's expecting a pretty good return on this player should they decide to flip him before the deadline. Now, one article suggests that the Canadiens would definitely be looking for a young prospect like Xavier Bourgault in return. Now, of course, if you're Edmonton, do you do that trade? You have to honestly wonder if that's something they would do. I mean, Bourgault is a very promising prospect, and Monahan may only be a player that they can have on their roster just as a rental player. I don't know if they would be able to afford him longer term. It kind of depends on how his season goes and what his next contract looks like. But still, that seems like a pretty steep asking price if you ask me. But at the same time, if the Oilers really want to be in go-for-it mode and win-now mode, they may not have a choice but to move a quality prospect that they seem to be high on to bring in a top player to help them out. Now, should the Ottawa Senators reconsider a Jacob Chychrun trade on the blue line? Certainly the team is not quite where it wants to be in the standings. Of course, they have a sale of the team that's looming and is obviously very much in the works and should be moving in a big step forward here in the next several weeks. And of course, we know that Pierre Dorion, fair to say, is facing a lot of pressure here between the sale and the state of the team and getting more W's, etc. We know that this team had a slower start than was expected, and we're looking for. They've been better lately, but they did end up losing a stinker against the Los Angeles Kings yesterday. Prior to that, they had won 4 out of 5, so we'll see if they can get things turned around. But unfortunately, they're going to be without one of their top defensive defensemen, in Artem Zub, again, after taking a puck to the face the other night. He's going to be out for 3+ weeks, maybe a month, with a fractured jaw. So that's certainly not going to be good news for Ottawa. The last time Zub was out for an extended period of time, things did not go well at all. And, is it time that they need to really suck it up and pay the price tag that they're looking for? I know Darren Dreger's talked about the fact in the recent podcast with Ray Ferraro, talking about the Chychrun price and whether Ottawa should make that deal, indicating that certainly, it's not like they're getting themselves an unproven asset here. The only issue with Chychrun is his age. He's got a good contract for a few more years, not overly expensive, and he's putting up good numbers right now, playing extremely well for the Coyotes. So certainly that should be a good indication of what you're going to get from him from a performance perspective. However, again, like I said, they're looking at multiple first-round quality pick prospects or picks to be included, and that's going to be pricey and expensive for Ottawa to pull off. But as Ray Ferraro said, it's not like you're getting an asset here that's just a rental or just a short-term thing. He's not even an older player. He's still in his mid-20s, has a good contract, and can be a big part of that top 4D with the Senators for a long, long time. So they may not have a choice but to give up that steep asking price. You know darn well Dorian's feeling the pressure for sure. Not only are the fans and everybody, wanting something to be done to get this team back on track this year, but the sale looming as well. It's interesting to see how this is going to go. Some feel that he's under more pressure and also might be more handcuffed because of the sale as well, not to take on too much more for commitment from a salary perspective for the time being, but we don't really have any way to confirm that that's actually the case. We know that the Senators have also reportedly been looking at Erik Karlsson. That's another very complicated situation it may or may not come to be, whether it be Ottawa or somebody else, but he's been getting a lot of attention lately around trade as well. And obviously with Chychrun being a cheaper option here when it comes to his contract and his age and everything, I would suspect that teams would most likely go for him first. given how complicated a Karlsson deal will be. But it does sound like he's motivated to move on to a new option and an opportunity to win as well. Same thing that really Chychrun's looking for, just a different part and stage of their career. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.